They were trained to protect the country, but some of them became its greatest threat. Men once called heroes are now locked inside cells for crimes beyond forgiveness. From a lone massacre in the dark Afghan night to a soldier who murdered his pregnant wife, then used the insurance money to fund a militia and plot the overthrow of the U.S. government. From a husband who drove 500 miles just to shoot his wife in the heart to a tank crewman who tried to sell U.S. military secrets to Al-Qaeda. What do they all have in common? None of them will ever walk free again. These are the U.S. military men sentenced to life in prison and the disturbing stories behind their fall. Cold-blooded murders, premeditated betrayals. Some claimed PTSD, others blamed no one. But the result is the same. They entered as soldiers, they will die as inmates. This is not just about what they did. It's about what they were trained to do and how they chose to use it. Number 1. Robert Bales, the Kandahar Massacre. March 11, 2012, Kandahar, Afghanistan. Staff Sergeant Robert Bales, a former stockbroker from Ohio, silently walked off a remote U.S. base in the dead of night, armed and determined to kill. He entered 2 neighboring villages. No warning, no hesitation. Within hours, 16 Afghan civilians were dead, including 9 children. Some of the bodies were set on fire after being shot. Bales returned to base. Then, just hours later, he went back out again to continue killing. When he returned the second time, military police were waiting. Blood covered his clothes and his weapons. During his trial, Bales confessed to everything. He stated that after seeing a woman named Naik Marga in one of the villages, he suddenly formed the intent to kill, and he acted on it. "Sir," he said, "as for why, I've asked myself that question 1,000,000 times since then. There's not a good reason in this world for the horrible things I did." Before the massacre, Bales had completed 3 combat tours in Iraq. This was his first deployment to Afghanistan. At the time, he was reportedly struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder, combat fatigue, financial pressure, and personal frustrations. But in the eyes of the law, no reason could justify what happened that night. In August 2013, Robert Bales was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The families of the victims in Afghanistan rejected the sentence, demanding execution. "He martyred 16 of our people, but they won't execute him. If we killed 16 Americans, would they forgive us?" As of April 2025, Bales is 51 years old. He has served 12 years of his sentence at Fort Leavenworth, the U.S. military's highest security prison. He will never leave. Number 2. Maliak Kearney, the husband who planned every step. August 24, 2015, Maryland. Sergeant Malik Kearney had one mission to kill his wife. Just 5 weeks after marrying Private First Class Carlin Ramirez, their relationship had fallen apart. Kearney had grown violent. Ramirez filed a protective order and moved with their 4-month-old daughter to another state. But distance didn't stop him. Kearney teamed up with his mistress Dolores Delgado, and together they planned the murder down to the mile. He borrowed her car, had her track fuel mileage, bought extra gas to avoid stopping at any station, and she handed him the murder weapon. On August 24th, Kearney drove over 500 miles from South Carolina to Maryland. He took only back roads to avoid being traced. He used his key to enter Ramirez's townhouse. An argument broke out. Then he shot her 3 times at close range. Before leaving, he staged the scene to look like a sexual assault. He then placed their infant daughter in her dead mother's arms and left. Kearney returned to South Carolina and acted like nothing had happened. But neighbors heard the baby crying. They called police, and inside, officers found Carlin Ramirez's lifeless body. The case went cold for over a year. Then his girlfriend turned on him. Dolores Delgado, once a suspect herself, confessed everything to the authorities. She testified at trial exposing Kearney's entire plan, from tracking the gas mileage to disposing of the weapon. During the trial, Ramirez's mother recalled how Kearney attended the funeral, stood over the casket, and whispered, "For all we know, the killer is among us." On November 30, 2018, after an 11-day trial, Maliak Kearney was sentenced to life in federal prison without the possibility of parole. The judge called him remorseless. Dolores Delgado, the accomplice, was also sentenced to 17 years in prison. As of April 2025, Kearney is 43 years old and has served 6 years and 5 months. His daughter, the infant left beside her mother's body, is now being raised by family. And her father will never be free. Number 3. John M. Russell, the clinic shooter. May 11, 2009, Camp Liberty, Iraq. Sergeant John M. Russell had spent over 2 decades in the Army. By his 3rd combat deployment, he was unraveling. He was depressed, paranoid, and convinced his unit was trying to end his career. That morning, Russell was taken to a mental health clinic after an explosive argument. Staff decided he needed to cool down. He was escorted out. But halfway back to his unit, he overpowered the escort, stole an unsecured M16 rifle, and drove back to the clinic. And then he opened fire. 5 U.S. military personnel were killed inside the mental health facility. Army Major Matthew P. Housiel, 54. Navy Commander Charles K. Springle, 52. Army Staff Sergeant Christian E. Bueno Galdos, 25. Army Specialist Jacob D. Barton, 20. Army PFC Michael E. Yates, Jr., 19. Russell was tackled and arrested on site. Prosecutors pursued the death penalty. But in May 2013, Russell pleaded guilty to avoid execution. Despite the plea deal, the military judge ruled the killings were premeditated and sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Russell's lawyers argued he was suffering from severe depression, PTSD, and possibly a combat-related brain injury. They claimed his actions were driven by psychological collapse, not malice. But the law didn't accept it. 5 lives were gone. As of April 2025, John Russell is 60 years old, having served nearly 12 years at Fort Leavenworth, the military's maximum security prison. A soldier who went to seek help and instead left a clinic drenched in blood. Number 4. William Kreutzer, the Fort Bragg ambush. October 1995, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Sergeant William Kreutzer, Jr. was nicknamed Crazy Kreutzer by his fellow soldiers. After years of ridicule, isolation, and deteriorating mental health, he snapped. The night before, he called a colleague and warned, "Tomorrow, I'm going to open fire during training." The warning was ignored. At 5:00 a.m., while over 1,300 soldiers gathered for physical training at Towle Stadium, Kreutzer was already hidden in the tree line, armed with 3 different firearms and hundreds of rounds. Then he opened fire. Major Stephen Mark Badger was killed. 18 others were injured. Chaos erupted. Unarmed officers tried to confront and redirect the shooter. Kreutzer moved positions several times. Finally, 3 Special Forces soldiers tackled and disarmed him, ending the rampage. In 1996, Kreutzer was convicted of 1 count of premeditated murder, 18 counts of attempted premeditated murder, theft of government ammunition, violating a general regulation. He was sentenced to death. But in 2004, the Army Court of Criminal Appeals overturned the sentence, citing ineffective legal counsel and concerns about Kreutzer's mental health. In 2009, as part of a plea deal, he accepted life imprisonment without parole. He was dishonorably discharged, demoted, and stripped of all military benefits. During sentencing, he addressed the court. To every person I hurt and everyone affected by my actions, I offer my most heartfelt apology. As of April 2025, William Kreutzer has served 29 years and 6 months at Fort Leavenworth. He will never be released. Number 5. Grady Wayne Wilkes, the officer killer. May 19, 2019, Auburn, Alabama. Corporal Grady Wayne Wilkes, a National Guard soldier and infantry fire team leader, had just committed domestic violence against his girlfriend, the mother of his child. She called the police. 4 officers responded to the trailer park. When they knocked on the door, Wilkes opened it wearing a military helmet, body armor, and carrying a rifle. Without warning, he opened fire. Officer William Buechner was fatally shot. Officers Webb Sistrunk and Evan Elliott were wounded. The 4th officer escaped unhurt. Wilkes fled the scene. A 9-hour manhunt followed. He was arrested the next morning, less than a mile away, after a citizen tipped off authorities. Prosecutors argued the attack was planned, pointing to the tactical gear and immediate gunfire. Wilkes claimed he reacted on muscle memory and didn't intend to kill anyone. In August 2023, he was convicted of capital murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, domestic violence. The jury rejected the death penalty and gave him life without parole. During trial, body cam footage captured Officer Buechner's final words. "Lord, please help me." Wilkes expressed remorse in court, but the judge called him dangerous and delusional. As of April 2025, Wilkes has served 1 year and 8 months in an Alabama state prison. And he will never get out. They wore the uniform. They swore the oath. But somewhere along the way, they turned their backs not just on the military, but on everything it stood for. Murder, conspiracy, treason. These 10 men didn't fall in combat. They fell in disgrace. Some claimed mental illness. Others had no excuse. One thing is certain, they will never walk free again. From Fort Leavenworth to state prisons across America, each of them is serving a life sentence, stripped of their rank, their honor, and their future. They entered the system as soldiers. Now they will die as inmates. This was the list of U.S. military men sentenced to life in prison and the crimes that put them there. Let us know in the comments. Should any of them have faced the death penalty? Which case shocked you the most? Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay informed, stay sharp.